Good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm Zach Myers with the Center for Dairy Excellence. Thank you for taking the time to join our Protecting Your Profits webinar this afternoon. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box by clicking on the chat box at the bottom of your screen and type your questions. I will try to monitor that and answer those questions as I'm able or at the end of the presentation. My goal today, as every month, is to provide an overview of current dairy market and to review risk management opportunities. This is all public information, and while I may express some opinions, these are not recommendations. So there's nothing really out of the usual in our agenda. It's the normal four main topics I'll cover, and starting, of course, with milk production and cow numbers at 19.15 billion pounds. U.S. milk production was down a slight 1% year over year in April. This is the 6th month in a row that U.S. has experienced reduced year over year production. U.S. cow numbers were down year over year for the 7th month in a row to 9.402 million head, which is the same as March's herd size. Milk production per cow was the same as 1 year ago at 2,037 pounds per cow for the month. This is equivalent to about 78 pounds per lactating cow per day, making the reduction in cow numbers the reason for the total production slide. Pennsylvania cow numbers are also down. They're down about 8,000 cows from last year. Milk output per cow was down about a half a pound, 4/10 of a pound, to 70.1 pounds per cow for the day, which is equivalent to 1,830 pounds per cow per month. As a result of fewer cows and lower production, April Pennsylvania milk production was down about 18 million pounds to 855 million pounds for the month. Moving on to product stocks, butter at 300 million pounds were down. The stocks were down about 23%. Cheese at 1.48 billion pounds is down just over 2%. And then March non-fat dry milk powder stocks were down about 8% to 288 million pounds. Product prices, at $2.80 per pound, April butter price is about $1.01 higher than last year, and it's considerably cheaper than the global dairy trade price and the EU butter prices at $3.09 and $3.52 respectively. Cheese price is up 57 cents compared to last year, and is also a discount compared to the global dairy trade price of $2.81. And $2.65 in the EU. And lastly, at $1.80, non-fat dry milk is 56 cents more than last year, and slightly lower than the GDT and the EU price of $2 and $1.95 per pound, respectively. Moving on to dairy product production, March butter production was up 30 million pounds compared to last March to 202.6 million pounds. March cheese production was up 1%, or 13 million pounds to 1.2 billion pounds, and March powder production was down 4%, or 8 million pounds compared to last year at 191 million pounds. Total dairy product disappearance was sort of mixed in March. The latest data available, butter disappearance was down about 9% to 191 million pounds due to a large decrease in domestic use that overwhelmed actually increased exports. Butter, as I've mentioned before in the webinars, butter is not a main dairy export category. It's in the top 6 or 7, but is not. We use a lot more butter in the United States than we export, so it doesn't take large decreases or increases in domestic use to change the overall outlook of the export market. At 486 million pounds, American cheese disappearance was up about 4% because of increased domestic use and exports. And then powder or other style of cheese, 748 million pounds, was up 5%, and this was driven by increases in domestic use as well as exports. Milk powder disappearance was down 21% to 224 million pounds, driven by decreases in both domestic use and export. So again, powder is the opposite of butter. We export many more tons of non-fat dry milk and skim milk powders compared to butter, compared to what we use domestically, I should say. Class 3 milk futures for the next 12 months were down 48 cents compared to this time last month to average $22.94 a hundredweight. And these are based on May 23rd closing prices. Class 3 peaks this month at $25.09, then falls into the low to mid 20s, $20 by the spring of next year. However, the current class 3 12-month average, even though it seems to be on a downward trend, is still $5.96 a hundredweight more than the 5-year average of $16.98. So you may notice that this graph looks a little different this month than what it normally does. I got a request from one of the participants that asking me to show the graph of the 5-year average below or on the same graph as the current. So that the gray line at the bottom is the 5-year class 3 average, and the yellow is the 5-year class 4 average. So class 4 price peaks in July at $25.25 a hundredweight, then drops to the low to mid 21s by next spring. The class 4 12-month average fell for the second month in a row compared to the previous month. However, the drop was only a 6 cents per hundredweight decrease in the average to $23.64 a hundredweight from $23.70 last month. Despite further decrease in average class 3 futures, it is still averaging nearly $8 more than the 5-year average I didn't list it in my notes, but it's 15 in the upper 15 per hundredweight on the 5-year average. Moving on to exports. March exports, the latest data available was we shipped 213,553 metric tons of milk solids equivalents across our borders. This is down 1% by about 2,000 metric tons. This is the fourth month to show a decline year over year. Non-fat dry milk and skim milk powders, as I mentioned a couple of slides ago, that is the largest product category where we export, and it was down 7%. And then cheese, which is the second or third largest export product, was up 13%, and butter, again, which is down around 5 or 6, was up 59%. So the increases, the big increases in cheese and butter, and there's some increases in some other products as well, but that kept that 7% reduction in non-fat dry milk and skim milk powders. It kept the increases in cheese and some of these other products kept that from falling as much as total exports falling as much as it could have. The value of $859.6 million estimated value, that sets a monthly record. That's the most that's ever been exported in a month's time. It's up 25% versus year over year, which is almost $172 million more this March than it was a year ago. So again, that's a record monthly value, and the increase is, how can you set a value record with decreasing total export solids? Well, it's the higher value products that have increased that are driving that, and higher dairy product prices in general. So even though we had a total decrease in terms of volume, the value of what we did export was up considerably. So moving on to risk management and dairy margin coverage. The March margin was announced at the beginning of the month at $11.55 a hundredweight. So of course, no indemnity was triggered for the month of March. The April margin will be available Monday, May 31st, and again is expected to be above that 950 threshold and not triggering an indemnity. Just a quick look at a DMC enrollment. The enrollment numbers change a little bit for a few months after enrollment ends, as county offices get all their data into the national database. However, based on Monday's weekly report, enrollment numbers are virtually the same as reported last month. So Pennsylvania numbers were not different, and I think the United States number increased maybe 6 or 7 dairies total. So no real meaningful changes there, and as far as enrollment numbers are for 2022. Moving on to projections, DMC is still not projecting any payments as of the DMC decision tool updated as of May 20th. However, it still would only take about a net drop of around $2 or slightly less for DMC to start triggering payments again. According to the latest crop progress report, corn and bean planting across the country is catching up to the 5-year average. 72% of corn acres are in the ground and 50% of soybeans are in the ground. This is only 7 percentage points and 5 percentage points respectively below their 5-year averages. So in comparison, 3 weeks ago, corn planting was behind the 5-year average by 42 percentage points, and beans were behind by 27 percentage points. So things are catching up, and farmers are doing a good job getting seeds in the ground. So if planting continues to go well and we have a good growing season, maybe price will stabilize some. If international issues contributing to the volatile commodity markets right now can also be stabilized. Moving on to dairy revenue protection. The DRP prices shown here are based on May 24th closing prices or yesterday's closing prices. 100% class 3, 95% price protected floor can be set from a low of $18.32 a hundredweight in the third quarter of next year to a high of $22.79 in the third quarter of this year for an average price of about 47 cents a hundredweight. On the class 4 side, 100% class 4, 95% price protected policy can be purchased to set price floors from a low of $18.66 per hundredweight in the third quarter of next year, up to $24.11 in the third quarter of this year for an average price of about 57 cents a hundredweight. So both class 3 and floor prices continue to trend down. Class 3 and class 4 premiums are still pricey. However, I would encourage you to look at the net floor price that those policies set and compare that to your break-even cost of production, and consider perhaps getting some protection over the next 5 months. And also remember that the deadline and the last day that third quarter 2022 policies will be available or would be based on June 15th closing prices. So after that, the sales period moves from the fourth quarter of 2022 to the fourth quarter of 2023. And then just a little bit of information here on enrollment in the dairy revenue protection. 45.7 billion pounds of milk covered in the U.S. by nearly 2,600 policies, with no policies yet indemnified. In Pennsylvania, 499 million pounds of milk have been covered in Pennsylvania by 128 policies, and again, no policies indemnified. Shortly before the webinar began, I got curious, so I ended up doing some calculations. So in the U.S., 5 billion more pounds of milk have been covered by 58 additional policies since this time last month. And the average U.S. policy covers about 17.6 million pounds of milk. And that's on the U.S. side. On the Pennsylvania side, farmers have covered about 47 million additional pounds of milk since last month. And the average PA policy covers nearly 4 million pounds of production. So DMC was designed for the smaller farm, and DRP is really designed for any size dairy. So with large dairies only being able to cover their first 5 million pounds in the DMC at an economically feasible price, the DRP gives them an option to reduce their risk management plan cost and cover more milk, and I think that's doing what it was designed to do with this much milk being covered per policy, and if you're looking on a national average and a Pennsylvania average. So with that, our next Protecting Your Profits call will be June 22nd, 2022 at noon. You can see the webinar link. It's the same, will be the same link as it usually is. And if there's any questions and you want to unmute yourself, please do and ask, or if you want to put them in the chat box, that's fine as well. I don't see anything in the chat box right now. So just wait a few seconds to see if there are any other questions. All right, well, with that, thank you again for joining me today. I look forward to talking with you again next month, and I hope you have a great rest of your week and a good Memorial Day weekend.